Photography was something that I found that my mind sort of gravitated to somehow. And so actually quite young, probably 14, I stopped painting and drawing and started just taking photographs. I moved to London to work as an assistant after studying photography for a couple of years, and then I started to look at Lewis Balt's work and came into contact with Andreas Gursky's work. But actually at that time it was all through books. It was through going into those bookshops on Charing Cross Road, and it was through picking up books. I picked up my first Andreas Gursky book and my first Lewis Balt's book in the early 90s, I guess. Those works of Balt's and Gursky, which I know are obviously quite different, but they both had a huge impact on me in terms of like thinking about how to read photographs and think about how to construct photographs as well. When I'm making a project, I try to do two things. One is to do an enormous amount of research, and the other thing is to work quite intuitively. For example, with the mapping work, my intuition was to develop this as far as I possibly could, which then led me to sponsoring a geology PhD student. Which is a challenging thing to do, because first you have to find an institution that wants to collaborate, then a student who wants to collaborate. I didn't really know what the outcome would be. It was like going into something completely new. It's become so easy to make a photograph, and so those processes are becoming rather invisible to some certain degree. You know, one of my interests is to make those processes and our interactions with science and technology visible by working with these technologies at a sort of frontier, working with scientists and collaborating with scientists who are developing technologies that will, in a few years' time, become technologies that we're all using. But at the moment, they're developing scientific tools. I found the whole idea of false photographic perception fascinating, and so I developed this series of work around that. That's something that came out of photographs I made, aerial photographs I made of a glacier called Crater Glacier in Mount St Helens, which is the world's youngest glacier. It doesn't have anything that gives away scale. It's about 300 feet deep, it's about 1.5 miles long, it's a kind of horseshoe shape. So I was trying to find a language to describe something of that strangeness. It also doesn't have anything in the landscape which particularly tells you which is up or down. I was doing some reading around that, and I actually discovered that it's actually a phenomenon known commonly to astronomers called false topographic perception. It really read like, here's a mountain ridge, here's the ridge of the ice on the glacier, and here's a valley. So you're reading it completely in this way, but you're unable to do anything about that reading almost, even if you know that one picture's upside down. The exhibition starts with a series called Blackout. Blackout for me was a really key work. I shot the work on film, and over a number of visits to this particular glacier called Solheimjokull, which is at times and in places almost entirely black. And of course that completely confounds one's expectation of what a glacier should be. But it's a very alien world, it's quite otherworldly, kind of planetary kind of landscape. And I was trying to find, again, a language for that work. Through something I was reading actually strangely about electrification of cities, and as part of that about blackouts in the mid-1960s in America, I suddenly had this realisation about the work. It was talking about the idea of a blackout abstracting the senses of a human being who was in the safety of central New York, and immediately then being subsumed by the darkness when this electrical blackout happens, and being thrust into nature again, not just into the nature and the wilderness of the darkness, but into the nature and wilderness of their own body and mind. And so I realised that by making an inversion of the work, that this planetary transformation would occur very immediately. So the sky in all these photographs, originally was white, misty sky, was suddenly the black of space. In taking that out of the glacier, it kind of restored the glacier, because the glacier was returned to a kind of idea of what a glacier should be. So the exhibition at the grave is an opportunity for me to explore the relationship between the works I've been developing the last 5 years, between continuous topography, transmission, forms and spatial objects, where I've been exploring this digital turn in my work and more of a particular move towards thinking about mapping and the expansion of the photographic process. 3D capture of landscapes and so forth, some of the processes I'm using, like photo scanning of landscapes. To make the work, there's a lot of planning. So recently I've been making work in the Alps, and prior to that making a lot of work in Iceland and in North America. When you're a photographer, you have to be in the world. I mean, photographers come under a lot of criticism, strangely, in some ways for that. You know, the painters in their studio, kind of studiously, working away, and it's a very cerebral exercise. But I always find photography interesting that you actually have to put yourself into the world. I mean, it's no less cerebral for that, but it's just that you do have to go there and confront it. But I think in my work there's a kind of dual confrontation, because there's a confrontation with the world outside, and then there's a confrontation, in some sense, with science. The work I've been making recently, the work I'm showing at the graves, is very much a kind of challenge to myself to confront my relationship with science and technology, to really try to inhabit technologies which are being used by scientists. And so that's a kind of confrontation, because it's challenging, it's not easy to do, it's difficult.